The Elder Tree. The Dryad Chronicles, Book 2. Written by Kevin W. Carr. Read for you by 𝓓𝓻𝓻𝓂𝓬𝓵. For Morgan. Chapter 1. Assassins. It had been 2 weeks since we had shut down the logging camp. I sabotaged their shipment of replacement hoses, which bought enough time for the president to intervene. A general had come and taken control of Colonel Silva's men. Colonel Silva was reprimanded for being involved with the logging company's illegal operation, and they reduced his rank to lieutenant colonel. The logging company was fined heavily for every acre of the forest they had destroyed. In addition, they built a ranger outpost where the logging camp once was to prevent further violations. I had funded the construction of the new ranger facility and spared no expense. In the 6 years I had been in the Amazons, my $5 million had almost doubled. My increased fortune was primarily due to my trustee, Frank, who managed all of my affairs from New York. I could not imagine having achieved anything I had done without him. Frank Campione was a lawyer and a brilliant financial analyst. However, most importantly, he was the most honest man in New York, which was saying something, and he was my friend. I had been trying to get him to give himself bonuses for years because of all the extra things he did for me, but he always refused. He reminded me of my father in many ways, which made him dear to my heart. The corrupt governor could not be linked directly to the illegal logging operation. However, I made sure the newspapers printed an expose on everything that happened under his nose. In addition, I had Frank heavily fund his political rival, and it looked like the governor would be losing the upcoming election. So, all in all, it was good to be the Red Witch right now. The events of the last month were running through my mind, but that was not what was keeping me up tonight. The hardest thing about living in Brazil was the heat and humidity as it approached summer. It was almost 2 in the morning, and it was still 80 degrees with what felt like 200% humidity. I lay in my bed, having stripped down to my underwear and a nightshirt. Sweat covered every part of my body, making me feel sticky and soaking my sheets. I would have paid $1 million for a cool breeze at this moment. Because of this humidity, swamp coolers did nothing to help cool the air. I got up to open the window and prayed it was a windy night. My small house was cluttered and badly needed repairs, but I liked it because it was the first house I had bought. I chose this house because of the living quarters being upstairs. Because of this, I didn't have to worry about anyone breaking in through a window. In addition, it had a heavy metal security door at the bottom of the stairs to stop intruders. I had planned on making enemies here in Brazil and didn't want to make it easy for them. The dusty ceiling fan tried futilely to cool the room as I made my way across to the large back window. I was startled by a loud breaking noise coming from the stairway that led down to the security door. I hurried over to check it out. At the bottom of the stairs were 2 rough-looking men wearing casual clothes. One man had his foot stuck in the now broken step at the bottom that I had been meaning to fix. The man with the stuck foot started cursing as he tried to extract his limb. The security door at the bottom of the stairs was wide open and completely undamaged. I realized they must have picked the lock, and I knew these were professionals. The man behind the trapped one looked up and saw me watching them. He raised something in his hand that was black, and I heard a slight cracking noise followed by a whizzing sound near my right ear. Then, something behind me broke, and I realized he was shooting at me with a silenced pistol. I dived to the side and leaned against the wall, looking around for something I could use to protect myself. I saw a half-drunk bottle of 𝓓𝓻𝓭𝓪 sitting on the table next to me. The alcohol was a premium brand that was over 80 proof, so I knew it would burn well. I grabbed a dirty rag that I had left there after dusting last week and stuffed it in the bottle. Then, after I turned the bottle upside down so that alcohol could soak into the rag, I began looking around for my Zippo lighter. "Where the fuck is it?" I said to myself in a frantic voice, not seeing it anywhere. The irony of being killed because I had quit smoking last week and didn't have my lighter handy was not lost on me. Then I saw it sitting on the nightstand by my bed. I sprinted for it and ducked when I heard another bullet whiz by me. One of my would-be assassins had reached the top of the stairs. I lit the alcohol-soaked rag and threw it at the man as hard as possible. The bottle exploded against the wall at the top of the stairwell, setting the entrance ablaze. Flaming liquid had splashed on the arm of the assassin, setting it afire. The man beat a hasty retreat while trying to extinguish himself. I ran to the window, flinging open the shutters, and perched on the ledge. Looking back, I could see that the fire had already turned into a roaring blaze, filling the room with smoke. I looked down at the ground, hoping not to see any bad guys waiting for me. Nothing was there except some old mattresses piled up beneath my window. I had placed the mattresses there when I had first moved here and was a lot more paranoid. They were now covered with mold and other organisms after being exposed to the elements for many years. The way down looked further than I remembered, and I hesitated a moment. Then, I pushed down my fear and mentally thanked my paranoid self before leaping out the window. The moldy mattresses broke my fall nicely, and I rolled off and got to my feet. I looked up, and I could see black smoke pouring out of the window and drifting up into the night sky. I hurriedly moved behind the houses that were bordered by forest. I didn't know how long it would be before they figured it out, but the more distance I had between them, the better. I could hear several voices calling out in the night, and knew that this was not a few assassins, but an entire cartel hit squad. Years ago, I had started dyeing my hair bright red so that I would stick out to draw the heat off of others. Now, that was working against me, and made me an easy target. Checking alleys in between the houses, I carefully moved through the night. Then I saw a homeless shoeshine man sleeping on his bench down one alley. I made my way to him, and the old man sat up when he saw me. Seeing a large can of black polish on the bench next to him, I picked it up and reached in my sock with my other hand, pulling out 1,000 reais that I kept there for an emergency. I held both items out to him, hoping he would accept my nonverbal offer to trade. He looked at me gratefully and took the money while nodding. The currency I gave him was only worth about 200 American dollars, but it was a fortune to this man. I heard a man shouting dangerously close by, so I hid behind the bench and broken crates. A man in a white shirt, carrying a small machine gun, rounded the corner. Seeing the old man sitting by himself, he called to him. "Has visto a una mujer pelirroja?" he asked the old man, inquiring about me. At that point, I was preparing myself for the probability of dying. I was less than 5 feet away from the old man, and I knew I would be gunned down if he said anything. "No," the old man said, shaking his head. I was pleased to see the gunman move on, and I let out the breath I had been holding. I grabbed the old man's hands in mine and quietly thanked him and wished I had more to give him. He smiled at me, and we parted ways. I saw a clothesline with laundry hanging on it in the back of the next tenement. I grabbed a plain old dress and a large bandana for a head covering. Then I opened up the shoe polish and rubbed it into my hair. When I had coated my hair with the black polish, I tossed the empty can aside and donned the bandana. I figured if they were already searching this far out, perhaps my best bet was to backtrack to where they had already searched. I could see my house fully engulfed in flames now, sending embers heavenward as it burned. When I was a few houses away, I cut down the alley and peered around the corner to check if the coast was clear. I could see 3 cartel gunmen in front of my house, and they had Victoria. Shit, I muttered, as I desperately thought of a way to save Victoria. The question was, were they trying to kill me, or were they trying to kill all of us? I had kept Victoria by my side to protect her, so I knew they would know who she was. I was sure that if I didn't intervene, at the very least, she would be dead by the morning. At the worst, she would be raped, tortured, and dead. 2 of the gunmen started moving off to help with the search. So now there was only 1 gunman with Victoria, and I knew this would be my best opportunity. On the ground in the alley, I saw a 10-pound bag of rice that someone had thrown out because it had mildewed. I knew if I was going to save Victoria without getting shot, I would need to get close to the gunman without raising any suspicion. I took off the large bandana and wrapped it around the bag of rice. I stepped out into the street, holding the bag of rice like a baby, and began walking towards them. I kept my head down while gently rocking my rice baby and cooing to it. The gunman looked at me, but paid me no heed, and then Victoria tried to break free of his grip. The gunman struck Victoria in the forehead with the butt of his pistol, and she fell to one knee. As I passed the gunman, he was trying to pull Victoria to her feet with one arm. I firmly gripped the 10-pound bag of rice and swung it with all my might at the gunman's head. The rice sack struck the back of his head with a powerful blow before I released it. The gunman fell to the ground and appeared to be unconscious. I did not know how long he would be out or when the others would return, so I felt a sense of urgency. I reached down and pulled Victoria to her feet, and when she recognized that it was me, I saw a powerful mixture of emotions in her eyes. "Run, Victoria!" I shouted, for fear that she might start hugging me. We flew through the streets, running as if the devil were chasing us. We took many turns to throw off our trackers, pushing ourselves to the brink of exhaustion. When we were only 7 blocks away, we had to stop and try to catch our breaths. We leaned against the alley wall, panting and gasping for air for several moments before we could speak. "Oh my God, I thought you were dead," Victoria said as she held onto me and frantically spoke. "I had gone to see Jose, and I found him dead. They had shot him, like, so many times," she told me and started to cry. "Then I came to warn you, and I saw your place burning, and those men grabbed me." After saying all that, Victoria broke down, and I just held her. "It's okay now, but I do not think we are safe yet," I told Victoria as I released her and gave her a reassuring squeeze on the arm. She nodded, and we began moving down the alley, away from the danger. I found a payphone a block away, and I had Victoria keep watch while I made a collect call to New York. I waited nervously while the operator connected the call, and Frank accepted the charges. "Frank, we're in deep trouble," I told him when we were connected. I could tell it was early in New York, and Frank sounded groggy. "Why didn't you call me on the sat phone?" Frank asked. I looked towards the towering smoke in the distance. "Frank, the sat phone's gone, and I need you to listen. They sent hitmen after us, and they came close to killing Victoria and me," I informed him. "What do you need me to do?" Frank asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "Right now, I'm at the corner of Rio Branco and Alvarera Street. I need you to contact someone we can trust down here to get us and find us covert transport to Sao Paulo. I instructed Frank. I know who I can call. Just wait there, Frank said, then hung up. I know we were going to wait until next week to go to Scotland, but can we go early? Victoria asked, nodding desperately. Yes, I assured her. Let's get the hell out of South America. We huddled in the alley until I saw a police car slowly cruising down the street. When I saw who was driving it, I stepped out of the alley with Victoria in tow. You don't look like a red witch, Charlene, a familiar voice said as I got into the front seat. The red witch is dead, Chief Luis, I told him, and as soon as Victoria got in the back, we set off. Police Chief Luis Garcia was a heavy-set, middle-aged man. He was one of the first people I met when I moved here. He was responsible for doling out my bribe money to other police officers. I came myself because there is a heavy price on your head, and I don't trust my officers not to cash in that ticket, Chief Luis told me. Do you know who put the hit out on me? I asked Chief Luis, knowing that he was a well-informed man. The cartel backed the governor because he let them freely produce and move their drugs. Now he has lost the election, and his opponent is anti-drugs and anti-logging. Because of this, the cartel wants you dead, and the governor wants you dead. Also, Lieutenant Colonel Francisco Silva wants you dead, and the logging company wants you dead. You are a very unpopular woman, Miss Charlene, Chief Luis explained, shaking his head as if it were a pity. That is an understatement, Victoria chimed in from the back, and Chief Luis laughed. Did you make arrangements to get us to Sao Paulo? I asked. I did, but you will not like the arrangements, Chief Luis warned. We drove out of town to a small municipal airport, which was little more than a dirt field. An old twin-prop cargo plane was waiting on the runway with its motors running. We got out of the car and walked towards it, and I could hear chickens as we approached the plane. Frank has plane tickets waiting for you and Miss Victoria at Sao Paulo, Chief Luis told me as he slid open the cargo door and helped Victoria up. Thank you, Luis. You are a good man, I said, and hugged Chief Luis before pulling myself into the cargo hold. Chief Luis stood there for a moment, smiling at me. You know, what is really funny about this is that this is a cartel plane, but I know the pilot. There are 10 kilos of cocaine mixed in with the chickens, Chief Luis informed me with a smile. I laughed, and he closed the cargo door. Sleep was impossible on this flight because of the loud rumble of the plane's motors and the constant clucking of the chickens. The chickens were stacked in crates that took up most of the room in the cargo hold, so we had to squeeze between crates. When I would lean my head against a crate, one of the chickens would start pulling at my hair as if it were a worm. Because of this, there was no way to get comfortable. I ran a lock of my hair through my thumb and forefinger, and I could feel the greasy shoe polish on it. This will be a bitch to get out, I commented to Victoria, who was sitting up with her arms wrapped around her knees. Do you think we are safe now? Victoria asked, looking exhausted. Until we are out of South America, I won't feel completely safe, I told Victoria. I knew Victoria was looking for me to be reassuring, but I felt it was better to be honest. Victoria nodded, looking a little sad. What are you thinking about? I asked Victoria, because I could see that something was bothering her. I was thinking about poor Jose. We joined Peace Corps together because we wanted to help people. He was my friend, and he deserved better than to be shot down, Victoria said, and I could tell she was on the verge of crying. I knew that many good people died this night, and it could be laid at my feet. I knew there might be consequences for myself when I chose to fight powerful people, which is why I tried to draw attention off of others. Foolishly, I thought that by dyeing my hair red, my enemies would only focus on me, but clearly I underestimated the lengths my enemies would go to. I wasn't sure how I could comfort Victoria when I could find no comfort myself. I didn't know what to say, so I kept my head down and stayed quiet. There was an uncomfortable silence, which Victoria eventually broke. I would trade every chicken on this plain for a warm bath, Victoria informed me in a melancholy voice. I couldn't have agreed with her more. This has been an excerpt of The Elder Tree, Book 2 of the Dryad Chronicles, written by Kevin W. Carr, narrated by 𝓓𝓻𝓭𝓪𝓭. Copyright 2022 by Kevin W. Carr. Production copyright 2022 by Kevin W. Carr.